I have never been the biggest fan of horror movies. In fact, I would say that they are my least favorite genre of all time. However, even I cannot deny that this next story is creepy enough to give anyone nightmares. So let's dive right in. It was a typical moving day for me. I had just finished college, and my friends and I were moving into our first apartments together. One of my friends, we'll call her Jessica, got a really good deal on a one-bedroom apartment on the 12th floor of an old building. When we went to go check it out, we couldn't help but notice that there seemed to be something off about it. For starters, the apartment was on the 12th floor with the 13th floor directly above it. But when we stepped out of the elevator, we realized that the 13th floor wasn't actually there. It had been completely removed from the building. This was weird, but it didn't bother us too much. We took the apartment and moved right in. Over the next few weeks, Jessica started to feel like something wasn't quite right about the apartment. Every night around 3 a.m., she would hear what sounded like screams in the vents. At first, she thought that maybe it was just some noisy neighbors, but the strange noises continued on, and eventually she could stand it no longer. She decided that she needed to find out once and for all what was going on in those vents. Armed with a screwdriver, she started to pry them open, but as soon as she did, the noise stopped. Confused, she continued to take apart the vents, but found nothing inside them at all. To this day, she still has no idea where the noises came from. However, the story doesn't end there. Jessica also started to notice other strange things happening in the apartment. For starters, she would constantly feel icy cold spots throughout the apartment, and she never found any explanation for them. Then one night she woke up in the middle of the night to what she thought was someone walking down the hallway outside of her apartment. She got up to investigate, but when she opened the door, she saw nothing. These strange occurrences kept happening over and over again, and she was starting to get scared. One day, while she was home alone, she heard what sounded like heavy footsteps coming down the hallway towards her apartment. Suddenly, she heard a loud knock on her door. She screamed and hid in the bathroom as she heard the knocking continue on and on. Finally, the knocking stopped, and she heard the door slowly creaking open. She stayed silent in the bathroom, and after a few moments, she heard the door slam shut again. Must have been the wind, she told herself. But deep down, she knew that there was something scary in her apartment building. Jessica tried to ignore these strange events, but it became impossible when she discovered the secret apartment. While walking down the hallway of the apartment, she noticed that one of the doors was slightly ajar. She pushed it open and gasped. The room was empty except for a single bed in the corner, but that wasn't what made it so creepy. You see, the apartment number on the door clearly said 13, but Jessica lived on the 12th floor. She turned around to look for the apartment number on the wall, but it wasn't there. There was no way to tell what floor she was actually on. She started to explore the apartment and quickly found out that it was filled with strange objects that seemed to be from a different time period. There were old books lying around, a vintage typewriter on the desk, and a gramophone in the corner. As she walked further into the apartment, she noticed a portrait hanging on the wall. It was an oil painting of a woman who looked like she had lived a very lavish lifestyle, but there was something strange about it. She didn't have a face. When Jessica looked at the painting, all she saw was a blank canvas where her face should have been. But that wasn't the only creepy thing in the apartment. As she continued to explore, she found a diary lying on the desk. It was bound in leather, and the pages were filled with strange symbols and writing. She couldn't make out what the words said, but she could feel a dark presence emanating from the book as she touched it. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her. "Who are you?" Jessica screamed and turned around to see an old man standing in the doorway. "How did you get in here? I thought you weren't supposed to be in here." He looked at her with a confused expression. "What are you talking about?" "How did I get in here? This is my apartment," he said. "Your apartment? But how? This is apartment 13. I thought it was abandoned," Jessica asked. The old man looked at her for a moment before replying. "Abandoned? No. This is my home. I live here by myself." He turned and walked away without another word. Jessica was stunned. How could there be an apartment that nobody knew about? And why did the old man seem so confused? Determined to find answers, Jessica decided to move into the apartment next to the mysterious apartment 13. She hoped that maybe the old man would talk to her and tell her what was going on, but he never did. Jessica started to feel like she was being watched, like someone was in the apartment next to hers listening to her every move. She tried to ignore it, but it became too much to bear, and she had to do something about it. Jessica decided that she was going to break into the mysterious apartment to find out once and for all what was going on. She spent days trying to come up with a plan, and finally she came up with one. She would wait until the old man left his apartment and then slip inside to explore. But as soon as she did, she would hear chains dragging metal moans. Then suddenly the lights would flicker and turn off. She was too scared to continue and ran out of the apartment. She knew that she had to do something to stop whatever was haunting her. She reached out to a local paranormal investigation team for help. They came to the apartment and used their equipment to try to detect any paranormal activity. What they found was shocking. They discovered that the apartment was filled with negative energy, and that there was a dark presence living inside it. The leader of the paranormal investigation team told Jessica that she needed to perform a ritual to banish the entity from the apartment. But she refused. She didn't want to risk making things worse. Instead, she decided to try to contact the ghost, or whatever was haunting the apartment, to try to communicate with it. But when she did, all she got in return were terrifying moans and the sound of chains dragging. She knew that she couldn't stay in the apartment with whatever was haunting it. She packed her things and moved out as fast as she could. Now, years later, Jessica still has no idea what was haunting the apartment. All she knows is that she never wants to go back and find out. Jessica and her friends were never able to find out what was haunting the apartment. Maybe it was a ghost, maybe it was something else. But whatever it was definitely not friendly. And if you like scary stories, be sure to check out more content, because there are plenty more where that came from. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.